All right, this is a neat part of this project, and I'll show you some pictures of some of the stuff I've made with some bent wood, but this gives you a chance to bend some wood and experience some lamination. So laminating is gluing two or more pieces of lumber together to achieve a certain thickness or width, usually. So, do a good job with this part. I'm really counting on you not to make a huge mess and not to waste a bunch of wood, and it will take some concentration on your part. So the clamps we're going to use for this are these red ones. Okay, they're pretty easy to use. First, you're going to loosen this handle. Okay, almost all the way. So there's a lot of thread right there. Okay, but not to where it's tight. You just want, quite a bit of thread here. Then you squeeze this, and you can move this back and forth. All right. If it doesn't move well, you can bang this end on the ground. Okay, don't bend this end on the ground because it will crack. And these, believe it or not, are like $70 or more a piece. So they're really expensive. And you're lucky to be able to have them. So if you're going to bang it on the ground to loosen it up, you just hit this end. And what happens is there just gets to be glue in here. So if you just tap it lightly on the ground while you're squeezing this, it tends to free up just a little bit. So I can set these down right here. I'm getting this ready first, okay? Because these have to be on the bottom of my jig. So here's the jig I'm going to use. It's got to be like this. All right, don't put the clamps on top of the jig because it's just not gonna work as well. So this is gonna be your best setup to make this go really well. So I made quite a few different jigs for different curves. That might be kind of fun for you to pick out your own one. They all have letters on them, so the H's have to go together. So you can't mix this one with that one, right? This one has letter D on it, so they both have to go together. You can't mix them with another one. I put some blue tape on there to help prevent your project from sticking, because we're going to put glue on these strips of wood, and we don't want that sticking to the mold, or you won't be able to get it off. So if the tape's in really bad shape, I'm counting on you to retape it for me, so that way your project doesn't get stuck to the mold. So I kind of got these ready the way I want them. I could probably even close them up just a little bit more. I don't need them quite this far off. Now I'm going to look at the time, make sure it's not too late in the hour to do this. So this is something I wouldn't want to do at the very end of the hour because I want to make sure this gets done right. I don't want to have to rush it. So the glue, you don't want to get it on your clothes. If you're wearing some good clothes, maybe I would wait and do this another day. The glue is water soluble, so that means it does wash off with water. But get all this done before you wash your hands. You're going to get glue on your hands, yes, probably. But don't, like some kids will get this started, they'll get glue on their hands, they'll go wash their hands while this glue is setting up, and then their project doesn't turn out as good. And then they're just going to touch it and get glue on your hands anyway, again. So go ahead and be okay with some glue on your hands just for long enough for you to get this situated. So these pieces of wood are called veneer. They're pretty expensive because they had to get it really, really thin. And it usually takes the nicest lumber around, the nicest trees to make veneer. And it really is a really cool piece of lumber. So when we have lots of little thin pieces, we can do neat things with them. We can bend them. You could never bend a thick piece of lumber that easy like this. But when they're all thin, we can bend them and we can form them. So I'm asking you not to waste these, okay? Don't just snap them like you would break a toothpick or throw them around. Try to take good care of these pieces. Okay, so I'm going to lay all these out. I'm going to do about half at a time, okay? And I think I have about 14 or so here. You probably need anywhere between 12 and 14 of these. So I picked a piece of a board that was just laying around that isn't very good because I'm going to get some glue on it. I don't want to get glue all over the tables and things like that. So there's 12, 13, 14. So I'm going to pick about half of them. And
you can look for one of these glue spreaders. There might be a couple of these laying around. If you can't find any of these, you can just find a nice piece of scrap wood. And you're going to put these on the board.
okay, now I'm going to hook these together. Now I'm trying to line them up a little bit so they're kind of flush on the ends. You're not going to get them perfect on the ends, and that's fine. So now I'm going to put it all the way up against my clamps on the bottom. And I have to close these clamps a little bit more. I'm trying to line the jig up a little bit so it's a little more centered. trying to line that up just a little more. Pushing it all the way down. Now I can start to actually do the bed. So I'm going to start to squeeze this together. And I should see quite a bit of glue start to seep out now. Oh, it worked really well. So I did about the perfect amount of glue, and I'm going to bring you in a little bit so you can see this. Alright, so I have about the perfect amount of glue here. Okay, obviously I'm a little heavier over here. So what I should do now is wipe some of this glue off. I could find a little scrap piece of wood or whatever. But if I can get some of the extra glue off now, I'll have a lot less sanding to do later, and it will really pay off. So don't just walk away from this. Wipe the extra glue off, and then you should write your name on this. So if you can, you could write your name on the jig even, just for now. Put a piece of tape on there, write your name on it, just so people know whose this is so it doesn't get mixed up. So that went really good. You can see a little glue squeezing out between most of the joints. Everything looks really good. All right, we got our nice tray here for the jewelry just to kind of sit in. This is called cove molding. See the cove in it? And I'll put a little video of how I made it. It's really kind of interesting. You just run it through the table saw at an angle. You raise the blade a little bit, run it through once, run it through again. Keep raising the blade each time you go through. And eventually it makes this. So the first thing you need to do is just sand this really good. You mainly just hand sand it. You can't get an orbit sander in there without damaging the sander or cutting into this. So please just hand sand it. Don't try to use an orbit sander because it's hard on them. Just hand sand this really good. And you're trying to get all the saw marks out of there to where it looks nice. The next thing you're going to do is we're going to find the center on the back part. So the back part's the wider part. The front part is narrower. So you're just gonna measure this out, and this one's 11 1/4. So that's 5 5/8 is the center. So I'm gonna go from both sections just to double check. So whenever you're trying to find the center of something, if you go from both ways, that kind of helps you out a little bit. And this will be my beam that goes in the back, and I need to find the center of this. So this one's a little bit trickier. It's 1 3/16 about. So it's a little bit trickier of a measurement to find the exact center. It's 11/16. It's the center. So I made the center point mark on this piece, and then I made the center point mark on this piece. So what I'm trying to do now is just line up those two center marks. So once I get the two center marks lined up, then I can trace this. All right, I can just gently trace this post, what size it is. All right, so then I have my square or rectangle that I'm going to try to cut out. So this part, you just want to be as precise as possible with this. Okay, it's not too bad if you take your time and go easy on it. But what you're going to do is you're just trying to saw down right here and saw down right here, and then we can just remove this chunk. You can even saw down once in the middle, and that will weaken it, so we can kind of just lightly remove that with a chisel. Now when you're sawing down on it, you put this in a vise, okay, so that way you can really focus on what you're doing. And otherwise you can yeah, really, that's what I would do. I wouldn't try to hold it with my hand. I'd put it in a vise, and I'll show you what that's like. So once you get that taken out, you're trying to fit this in, fit this piece in. So you kind of see this makes it a lot stronger if we do it this way, and that way it won't be flimsy or fall out of that. So here's the notch I made in this one, and then you can see where my screws went in. It's just a really strong way to do this joint. If I just nail it right on there, it's going to be too weak. It's going to want to wobble around and break off. So you'll see in the back I did 2 sets of holes just like I did on some of the other projects. The first one I did was a small hole, like 3/16, and the second one I did was 3/8, and I just spaced them out. I measured up 3/8 of an inch, so they're spaced from the center 3/8 this way, All right, and then I just spaced them out about a 1/2 inch in from the corners, okay, on each side. So that way, when this goes in, and you want to just be a little conservative with this, you don't want it super loose fitting, but I'm trying to get a really nice fit like that. So if you end up having this too wide, if this is too wide, don't throw this piece of wood away, because if this piece of wood's kind of hard for me to make, and I'm not going to have extras, what you can do is pick out a wider one of these, okay? That will work good for this. So that will really help you out. I'm going to go over to the vise now and show you how to saw this on the vise a good way. All right, here we are at the vise. All right, you just turn this and the jaw will open and close. So to protect this, so if you over tighten it or dent it, it looks terrible. You dent it all up. So the best way to do that is to grab, a scrap piece of wood, get that in the vise. All right, and then if you dent the back a little, it's not going to be so bad. But you can even use 2 pieces of wood. And now you're just going to tighten this down. It doesn't have to be super tight, just enough so it doesn't move. And then that way I can concentrate now on making my cuts. So I'm just going to take my saw, and your saw looks a little different. But just take my saw and I'll gently do the 2 outer edges first. Then I can real gently chisel away this middle piece, and it should come off pretty good. And then I'll have to hand sand a little bit. Or use a file. I can use a file to clean it up a little bit as well. And we're trying to be really accurate on this. So we're trying to be really accurate. Remember, if you cut this too wide so it's really sloppy, don't throw this away. Just go get a new vertical beam. We can pick out a new one of those. All right, so for the vertical, I'm going to drill some holes for the dowel rods. And what you're trying to do here is I just start at the end, and I went about 2.5. And then I went to about 4.5, and then I went to 8 3/4, and then 12 1/8. Okay, so that's about what I did. It doesn't have to be exactly, what I did there. But now you'll notice at the end, I left these corners square, but I rounded these 2 a little bit. I just knocked these down, really trying to make those smooth, but I'm trying to keep these square so they still fit nice. So I'm going to come over to the drill bit, and I have to make sure I have the right drill bit for this. It's got to be 3/16 diameter, so you need to check the drill bit diameter. Use a drill index. If you don't know what that is, refer to that in the video section. There's a drill index that will help you figure out the diameter. And then you're going to drill those holes all the way through. So you're trying to center the hole this way and then drill it all the way through at the different increments. And then that will allow you to put the dowels in there. All right, so before you put the dowels in, glue them in. I would test them to see if they fit in the holes, okay? If not, and I might even hand sand the ends of these a little bit. If there's a bad spot, you might have to cut off just a tiny bit, make them really nice. But what I thought would be a good method is to kind of stagger these, because if you stagger them, then you can put some longer jewelry on the ones that go out. So this could hold a longer bracelet. This would be maybe a shorter bracelet or some rings. So your goal is to make sure, like, this one doesn't fit very good, but it fits good going in this direction. So, get them to where they fit first. And then you don't need much glue or anything on these, all right? Because there's not going to be a lot of stress on it. Most of the stress is going to go down. But then you don't want it super loose either. So what I thought I'd do is I'd pull it out a little bit from where I want it. I'll put glue in, just a little bit of glue on there, and just like a dot of glue, and then pull it this way, so then the glue ends up being in the middle. So same thing here, I maybe just force it out this way, just put just a tiny bit of glue on there, and then push it in here so then the glue helps it adhere to that. So I just work my way down. That's how I would glue that on. Once you let the glue set for 24 hours with the laminations in the mold, you can take it out of the mold, and then you're going to sand it flat on both faces. Then you can even sand the corners, and you're going to drill 2 countersink holes with a 3/8 diameter drill bit, go down about 3/8 of an inch or so. And then in the very center, you're going to drill a small pilot hole, probably about 1/8 inch in diameter, all the way through that top holder there.
And then you can mount this onto the support on the back with 2 screws, and then you're going to just take your plugs and put a little glue around the outside of the plug with your finger, and then you'll tap that in and sand that flush. So then your last step is just sanding everything really nice and looking for any spots you can make better. You could put the little caps on the jewelry holder on the bottom of the tray so that things don't fall off, and then you can put a finish on it to make it look nice and finish it off. All right, there you have it. Good job on your project.